Welcome to our community. Susie Thomas with you this morning. We welcome our friend Max Barton from the Canton Museum of Art. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, everybody's talking about Scrimmage. What a neat exhibit.
Yeah, football and American art.
Yes.
What a better place for it than here in the city of Canton.
That's where I have to start. You're ingenious to bring something like that. Somebody said, well, if you can't beat them, join them. And we're bringing art and football together in Canton, Ohio.
Well, yeah, it was, the museum looked at this. I looked at this in 2014 when the show was originally created out in Colorado. And a piece from our collection was asked to be put on loan to it. We have a wonderful Thomas Hart Benton lithograph that's a study of a Kansas City Chiefs game, or I should say practice from his vantage point from the sidelines. And Benton is one of the foremost American regionalist painters. And so I sent this on loan to this little exhibition in Colorado that was then traveling to the University of Oregon and then was going to be dispersed back to all these major collections across the country. And so I said to them, can this travel to Canton, Ohio, birthplace of the NFL? And they said absolutely. And thankfully, and for people that don't know a lot about loaning at museums, major museums make loans all the time, but we only keep our objects out for a short period of time. And that has to do with the sensitivity of the paper and things being on display, humidity levels, all those kinds of great things. But we've been able to keep virtually, I think all but two of the pieces from the original exhibition have come to Canton. And we're talking about loans from institutions such as the Art Institute of Chicago, the Museum of Fine Arts in Houston, just many, many, many collections, the Smithsonian, and private collections, public and private collections across the country. And it is football in art. It is not football art.
Right.
There's a dramatic distinction, and Scrimmage is broken into 8 different themes that cover a lot of the storylines of the development of the game, the evolution of the game, and topics
Women
that we're
in the
still
game.
discussing today, such as the roles of women in the game, football and violence, so all the different topics about head injuries, things that artists saw in the late 1800s, we are still discussing and haven't solved some of those topics today. So, this exhibit represents artists such as Andy Warhol, Frederick Remington, John Stewart Curry, Norman Rockwell. I mean, there's a wide range of major American artists who happen to investigate at some point in their lives the game of football. And that's what this is meant to showcase.
Going all the way back to the Civil War.
Yes.
Talk about some of those older pieces.
Well, Winslow Homer has a piece. We have two illustrations from him in this show. Many original illustrations don't survive, so then you have some reproductions from the original Harper's Weekly magazines. And Homer had a wonderful illustration called Holiday in Camp, and it was soldiers playing football, 1865. So a form of football as it was developing, but you see Union soldiers in this relaxing brawl in camp. I wouldn't call it relaxing, I guess, but it's how they relaxed from the Civil War, and that is a showcase of how the game developed, and it did develop from these camp and playground brawls into the game that was organized into the football that we know today. And Frederick Remington, who's very well known for his bronzes of the American West and his paintings of the American West, he explored at one point in his career the game of football, and he himself was a player. And that's interesting because people have been asking since the exhibit opened, these artists, well, they didn't know anything about football. Well, yes, they did. And Frederick Remington is one of those. He was a football player at Yale. He was on the team that was captained by Walter Camp, and Walter Camp is known as the father of football. And that when Walter Camp invented the line of scrimmage, apropos for the name of the exhibit, as well as the system of downs that is used in the game today.
Really?
So Remington played football. John Stewart Curry played football. There's just a wealth of artists out there that started their careers as illustrators for weekly magazines and weekly newspapers, and really were the way that this game spread across the United States, because we didn't have Twitter. We didn't have all the instantaneous ESPN and NFL Network and all this. And so illustrations by artists showed what was going on across America. And this game spread. And it started as a very small game that was meant to be between a few players, to going to the Ivy League schools, and it started as it was a white Ivy League game. And as word of it spread, as artists spread what was happening in this game, as schools were competing, as opportunities opened up for players of color and of different to play in this game, it grew into what it is today. It's interesting to look across, to survey the work of American artists, is to not see very many players of color, if any, depicted in those early works.
Isn't it?
So you
look
still
at
see
those championship teams,
yes.
and you think, my goodness, yeah, it's almost startling.
Absolutely. But when we start to see them in maybe the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, but even then, there's still, there looked to be a bias toward not showcasing any player other than a white player in artwork. But
Yes.
photography changed that. And so, this exhibit goes through works on paper, photography, beautiful sculptures. But as I was saying, Frederick Remington's piece that starts out everything and showcases football as a spectator sport shows you exactly what I was just talking about. A white, young male team on the field playing, and it's Princeton versus Yale game. And then you look at the spectators, who all look like they have just stepped off of the stock exchange, and they are all old white men in top hats, but that is the way the game looked at that time.
Yeah, it captured that snapshot.
It did. And that's, I like to say of Scrimmage, it is a snapshot in time as you move through the exhibit and look at the different themes of athleticism or women's roles or violence or celebrity culture.
Yes.
It's a snapshot at the time when the artwork was done, and it calls us to have some discussions about those things today. What are we seeing in what yesterday looked like, and what are we still seeing today? Are those debates still happening?
Like any good art does. This has been an interesting collaboration, hasn't it? Because you've worked pretty closely with the Professional Football Hall of Fame. You've got some items on loan from them. Was that to augment this? It's kind of interesting seeing the development of the helmet through the years.
Yeah, Scrimmage came about, as I said, because of it was created as a wonderful exhibition in Colorado and Oregon, and then coming here. But coming here, we wanted to augment it out in the museum lobby, and have an ancillary exhibit in one of the side galleries with the cooperation of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and they've been tremendous in putting works on loan to us. So, and as I always like to spread the word to folks, it's they go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame and they see the uniforms and they see the artifacts. Many people don't think of the Pro Football Hall of Fame as a museum, but indeed it is. And I know I've said that they have recently undergone their accreditation review, and I believe that they get awarded their accreditation. So under the American Alliance of Museums, so they are a tremendous repository of artwork, and we're lucky enough to be able to be 5 minutes from them and to go over and paw through the artwork and see what we would like. And so we got several pieces on loan from them. Some wonderful Merv Corning watercolors of Joe Green and Paul Brown, and a wonderful Ernie Barnes piece called The Bench. Ernie Barnes, an African-American NFL player for 5 seasons, who painted the bench in a matter of about an hour or so.
Really?
When he got home from attending his very first NFL game in 1959,
Yes.
and he had just been drafted to the Baltimore Colts, and he felt such a range of emotion sitting on the sidelines watching this championship game of the Colts against the New York Giants, that he was overcome with emotion, came home, wanted to paint this wonderful piece called The Bench, which is his view from behind the bench, And Ernie kept that in his possession his entire life. It was only donated to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2014, which is several years after he passed away. But it was an inspiration to him, and despite many offers, he would never sell that piece. So that piece resides in the Pro Football Hall of Fame conference room, and I was over there talking with Joe Horrigan and David Baker, and I said, well, I'd really like that piece for my lobby, and they said, absolutely.
Wow.
So there's that, and there's a beautiful Clyde Singer that most people around the Canton, Ohio area know very well, and it's an amazing piece from a football game. And so, when I heard people that said, well, you can't, football and art don't mix, you can't have football and you can't put football in the art museum. Well, yes, you can, because major American artists like Singer and like Remington and like Warhol, they explored it at some point.
It's been a subject.
It's a major part of American culture, just like baseball would be. So it's having the Pro Football Hall of Fame collaborate with us has been great, because not only did we get those artworks, there's also a survey of 150 years of the development of the football helmet in our lobby, ranging with about 12 helmets that are there. So it ranges from an early 1930s Cleveland Skeletons leather helmet, which is actually, it's a full facial coverage and everything. It looks like a gladiator type. It's quite frightening to the helmet as it is today. But you get a look at how that has evolved from different decades of the game. And then inside the galleries, they've installed a lovely exhibit called Gridiron Legends of Stark County. And so it celebrates all the players from Stark County.
And that's the side exhibit.
That is the side exhibit to scrimmage. And
Let's
that
talk about
hosts images and artifacts. Dan Deerdorf, Alan Page, Mary Motley. I mean, amazing tribute to players and enshrinees to the Hall of Fame from Stark County.
Yeah. And who else can do that? I mean, Stark County does that the best.
Stark County does do that the best. And the Pro Football Hall of Fame is they're just excellent in the exhibitions that they put on. And this is a little bit of a taste of their original exhibit that they've been doing at a lot of the NFL cities, which is called Gridiron Glory. Which, when we talked about this, and this scrimmage has been in the works here to come to Canton for about 3 years, so it takes a long time to plan these things. So, we've been working really closely with a lot of different partners across the city. There's
so much of it is art that you maybe not thinking that this is art when you're looking at it, but I'm thinking of programs from games with cool illustrations on them, and the cards that you have, the rookie cards of so many of the players. That display case is so cool. Talk about that, how art has worked its way into, if we're really paying attention, we're being exposed to it if we appreciate it throughout the day.
Well, you see it in all different forms. This is, as I said, an exhibition that's really meant to. It's using football as a way of getting you to discuss a lot of issues that we look at, and that artists have looked at for the last 150 years. If we look at, let's say, Andy Warhol. So everybody's familiar with a lot of the Warhol works. This exhibit contains his screen print of O.J. Simpson, which was done in 1977, and it was a series called The Athletes that Warhol did, and it involved not only Simpson, it was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, it was Muhammad Ali, Dorothy Hamill, Chris Everett, were just about 10 different athletes. Well, they became celebrity icons, celebrity sports icons, and that's something that as you look at that, you see that today. And so you see the screen print that's there. You see 4 original Polaroids that Warhol took as studies to create this. And you think, well, all right, Simpson was celebrated at that time as a major athlete. What is he today?
Right.
But it's not just about him. It's about creating celebrity sports icons. And as I said at my opening gallery talk last week, I said today, we're all artists in some point, and that we can do the same thing that Warhol did. We can create a celebrity sports icon in a very short number of characters on Twitter, sitting in our living room after a touchdown. And we can also at the same time bring that same person down on Twitter
True.
in the same matter of just a few seconds. So, that's something to think about. Is the creation of sports icons, what does it mean? What do they mean? Do they have a place today? What's their role?
Mm-hmm.
Are they role models? And in many cases, yes, the answer is yes. They are role models.
They are, like it or not.
But how do you balance that with so as you're looking at the O.J. Simpson piece, those are some things to think about.
It's ominous. He's so serious in those poses. It's ominous, and that was before the trouble.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
before anything.
Before
And
anything.
so how do you think about that? So how do you think about celebrity sports icons now based on that one example?
Yeah. Wow. We're speaking with Max Barton from the Canton Museum of Art. Going to take a short break here. We'll be back after these words. You're listening to Our Community.